Hey guys, it's our study and welcome to Comic Space, and today we have the biggest update so far about a project that we have talking about on the channel for a while now, and I'm talking about the Nomad Project. So, as it looks like Marvel Studios have greenlit the project and they're gearing up with Nomad to come out with Steve Rogers coming back to pick up the mantle back again as Captain America. So we have a lot to talk about. This is a quite interesting update because we also haven't quite in clarity of what this project is actually going to be about. So today's update is coming from My Time to Shine. Hello, in industry insider that we cover frequently on the channel and also having quite a great track record as well. As you have stated, Marvel Studios have greenlit the project with Steve Rogers returning, and the part of the plot takes place him returning the stone to their original places. For the longest time, like I said, we have been talking about Nomad, and I think the initial update that we had for Nomad, it has been good 2 years since we started originally talking about that project, and we even have talked about that Marvel Studios might have chopped up the project and it have been on the chopping block with all of the changes happening all over the place. But the news of Nomad comes out once in a while, and again it is just looking more and more of an possibility of actually happening. So this isn't quite a major update because we haven't clarity about how Marvel Studios is going to pursue the Nomad and what exactly the story is going to be. Because for the longest time we have been assuming the Nomad project was going to be centralized around Steve Rogers and his time in between Civil War and Infinity War. So again, and last time we talked about the Nomad project, we talked about Scarlett Johansson is actually working on a secret Marvel project, as she was going to be in part of the project much behind from the camera, probably as an executive producer for the show, and that project might have been the Nomad project. So we have talked all about that, but the much more interesting thing is that as Marvel Studios is taking a totally different path for the Nomad project, I think this isn't quite a much more interesting angle to also look out for the Nomad project, because again, if you're talking about the time between Civil War and Infinity War, it is just kind of very clear it out, and again there are not too many of the stakes, or the ending is also predetermined. We know where that all goes and how that is going to end. Again, you can explore that, but there's not much that you can actually do that. And again, with all of the rumors going around with Chris Evans returning as Captain America for Secret Wars, so that is what it makes it more interesting. And just recently we know that Chris Evans has supposedly signed on with Marvel Studios for what? We don't know. It could be an appearance for the Avengers film, or he could be coming back for the Nomad project as well as for Avengers Secret Wars. And that's why they're taking this take on the Nomad story. And again, that's the kind of the only reason to actually do the Nomad project, if you are actually going to make Steve Rogers come back and take part in Secret Wars. And I think in this way the story is actually a much more lucrative, because again, just as he is returning the stones, he probably could have taken a much more scenic route, or things might have got sideways, because we don't know anything when he stepped onto that time platform in Avengers Endgame. We don't know anything about what happened. We know that he did went back to his original timeline and he went back to Peggy. We know that, but the time in between those scenes, that is much more interesting, and you can actually explore a lot more in that front. Especially, like I said, if you're actually going to make him come back for Secret Wars, you basically do the Nomad project, you get Steve Rogers back from your original 616 timeline, and that's how you are not following a total different variant of Steve Rogers from a total different timeline, but you are actually following the variant that we all know and love. And much like what we have seen in the Loki series, that's how you do it. And another thing, that part of the plot takes place of him returning the stone to their original places. So that means the story might begin with him returning the stone to their original places, but something probably is gonna go sideways, and somehow he just end up in this multiversal shenanigans of Secret Wars. Again, all in all, if you are going to do a Nomad project and to make Steve Rogers come back, to make Chris Evans come back to that role, you're just not going to do it just to do it. You gotta add much more to that. And again, where all of the things are pointed at, you want him in the Secret Wars. If you are going to make him come back, that's the project you want him to actually be part of. and Nomad is just in setup to do that and to convincingly do that and actually adding in meaning for his comeback. Because again, at the end of the day, we have been talking about Scarlett Johansson coming back, Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans coming back to their respective roles. Again, end of the day, there is like absolutely no necessity of ever doing that. You can for sure just leave those guys out. There is no need of them to come back. In storyline wise, you already have your total new Avengers roster. You have Captain America, you have all of these things going on. If you look at all of the things, you don't actually need those guys to actually come back to their roles. Would it be great to see them back again? 100%. And I think if it were to happen, it would be just in pure fan service of Marvel Studios of to see those guys come back, but also to add much more gravity to those guys' story. You're just going to take some major lengths to make these guys come back, and these guys are only going to come back if it actually going to make sense. And by the way, Kevin Feige have said at many occasions that he wasn't going to make Robert Downey Jr. come back as Iron Man. He wasn't going to undo what they did at the end of the Endgame. But there are lots of ways you can actually do this, and especially with the multiverse saga, which is like your golden opportunity to do this sort of things. Because again, I think Deadpool and Wolverine couldn't have been much more of a great example of Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine. Nobody wants to mess up Logan. They're not messing up with Logan, but they're doing total different take with Wolverine, with a total different Wolverine that we're going to see in the movie. They're not doing that. I am kinda hoping if this project was happening, I would say I was hoping for an announcement by Kevin Feige by Marvel Studios at this year's San Diego Comic-Con or D23, but it also depends at what time this project might be coming out, and it is probably going to be coming out as in Disney Plus series, probably in very limited series. They might as well do like 4 or 5 episodes. Can be far down the road, it can be just right before Secret Wars or just right before Avengers 5. So I think it is time for me to see you guys off. Well, that's it for this video guys, but before you go, you can consider to grab the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel or DC update. I'm so glad that you guys got the time to hear me out. Thanks for listening to me. This is your host Adi signing off. See you in the next one.